Little bit of a late one here, I apologize for that, but we had ourselves some very, very good news. Take a look at this tweet made by the Detroit Red Wings on Twitter from, when was this, like 6 hours ago. My gosh, I was asleep when this came out. The Detroit Red Wings have signed defenseman Axel Sandin Pellikka to a 3-year entry-level contract. Now, I'm going to do my best to not go out there and straight up repeat all the stuff that we had talked about in the Axel Sandin Pellikka championship video. That was over here. If we scroll down, how far down was it? It was over here. Oh, this is it. Yes, 5 days ago, we had talked about Axel Sandin Pellikka winning the Swedish championship with the Skellefteå AIK team. And just a little under a week later, he has officially signed his ELC. Now, it doesn't take a genius to recognize that this is a good move, but just in case you needed the scoop, who is this guy, what's he about? Well, let's go over to the profile here. Axel Sandin Pellikka is 19 years old, 5'11", 181, right-handed defenseman, born in 2005, which is kind of terrifying when you really think about it. Like, the guy is born in 2005 and he's already a professional athlete. What are we doing? The Red Wings drafted ASP in the 17th overall spot in the last year's NHL Draft. He was taken with the New York Islanders first-round pick that was acquired by Vancouver in the Bo Horvat trade, sent over to Detroit in the Filip Hronek trade, and used to select ASP. He's an offensive defenseman with legitimate first-unit power play upside. His puck skills, playmaking, shot, and the ability to walk an offensive blue line make him a credible scoring threat with the puck on his stick, as does his ability to process options and make plays at speed off the rush. The Swedish blue liner is an engaged defender, particularly stout between the blue lines and along the boards. This year, ASP in the SHL had 18 points in 39 games played, and he was half a point a game for Skellefteå in the postseason, where, as we had said, he did win himself the SHL championship. This team won, and if you go over to some of the records here for defensemen in the SHL, his 18 points in 39 games played is good enough to, if you want to do some of the calculations over here, to put him amongst the top defensemen the SHL has ever seen, especially in the past few years. ASP in his U18 season was defeated only by Rasmus Dahlin as a 17-year-old, Thomas Jansson in 1979, Simon Edvinsson, who had himself an 18-year-old season that was pretty similar, but not as great points per game-wise, and then Victor Hedman, who was the number one guy in the SHL's defensive U19 system all time. You can see some of the other guys that Axel Sandin Pellikka had beat in this category. Adam Larsson is a good defenseman. Victor Soderstrom was a top prospect. Eric Braunstrom had an offensive touch. There are a few other guys here whom you might recognize. And if we go over to all-time points per game, we can disregard a lot of these because, okay, no, we can actually straight up just put it in here. Yeah, so minimum games played, we'll put 10. There you go. And we'll see here that Axel Sandin Pellikka is one of the top guys over here. He actually had the 7th best point per game season out of U19 defenders in SHL history. So with the ELC, he is now officially under contract. The plan seems to be, according to Axel Sandin Pellikka himself, he says that it feels right to stay in Skellefteå, and signing the ELC is a step on the way. The big dream is getting closer and closer. Ice Hockey Gifts went out there and tweeted this, and of course they linked an article that we can go out there and read. This is on noron.se, and thank you Google for automatically translating this into English. Axel Sandin Pellikka signs his NHL contract, and the club announced this on social media. It feels obvious to stay here at the club I love, said ASP to Noron about the upcoming season. Let's go out there and read the article. Oh no, it is behind a paywall, unfortunately. But this is talked about on Ice Hockey Gifts. He does want to stay in Skellefteå, it appears, which is not that bad of a move. Honestly, like, you could say that for ASP, he's already had himself a good year in the SHL. What does he need to prove? Well, there's never really anything wrong with taking a little bit more time to develop, especially for defensemen, and especially for Detroit Red Wings defensemen. I mean, we had talked about this in the last video, but Simon Edvinsson, Moritz Seider, these guys each took some extended time to be a part of their teams or just spend a little bit of extra development time in separate leagues before making the jump over to the NHL. I mean, Moritz Seider, after getting drafted in 2019, spent a year with the AHL's Grand Rapids Griffins. He went over to Regla, and then he played in Detroit. Simon Edvinsson, same thing. He was drafted in 2021. He then spent another season in Frölunda. He then went over to Grand Rapids, had a cup of coffee with the Red Wings, and then went over to Grand Rapids and had a cup of coffee with the Red Wings again. So Simon Edvinsson and Seider both have gone through some extended developments, and I think I actually got this wrong in the last video. I think I said that Edvinsson was on a quicker path to the NHL than Seider was, but I think I was off by a year. Yeah, no, that's an aside for another video, but ASP will have himself an opportunity to do exactly that. He had himself the Draft +1 eligible season, he'll have himself a second one, and realistically, because the other guys, Seider and Edvinsson, already had themselves AHL years by the time they were 20 years old, it is interesting to see ASP go down a bit of a different route. 2 straight years of SHL play rather than an AHL year thrown in there. We always kind of knew that his development wouldn't be exactly the same, considering he is 5'11", he's a smaller guy, Seider and Edvinsson are both towers, so it was never going to be super constant, but there still would be some level of overlap here, especially with the European connection, the Swedish connection, and just how the Red Wings like to do their developing. And especially stylistically, since Seider and Edvinsson are both, bigger, they're more defensively sound, I guess you could say. Not that ASP is bad in his own zone, it's just he focuses a lot more of his game on the offense, and his pivots and his vision and his passing, it's all so good. This scouting report pretty much labels him as one of the more pure offensive defensemen the Red Wings have in their system. More so, I would say, than what Seider and Simon Edvinsson can bring. Again, not to disrespect anybody here, Seider and Edvinsson can both get points, it's just if ASP ends off his career with a higher points per game season than these guys, or he has more points in total, I would not be surprised. That's just kind of the way ASP has built his hockey profile over the years, a small, nimble, offensively gifted defenseman on that blue line. So heading into next season, I wouldn't be surprised if Axel Sandin Pellikka, with a bigger role with Skellefteå, is able to go out there and get even more points. If we're getting like 25 points out of this guy, then I think that's a really, really good bet. And these ice times are probably going to have to boost themselves up as well. He wasn't the most consistent in terms of ice time. I mean, there were some games, 17, 18, then there was a 15 game in there, there's an 11-minute game. There are a bunch of overtime games where he played a lot. I mean, 25 minutes against Regla. He had 23, 22 minutes, 23 minutes again. A lot of games against Frölunda, as you can see, and then of course the 3 that he had played at the end there against Regla. So he did get himself a pretty used role in the team. That's a bad way to put it, but he was utilized well with the Skellefteå AIK team most nights. So heading into next season, if he's able to get just a little bit more out of himself, out of the team, out of the situation, then that'll be ultimately setting him up for better Grand Rapids Griffins development and, as a result, Red Wings development. So for ASP, it seems like he'll be sticking around in Skellefteå. He'll probably get loaned out there by the Red Wings, especially since ASP himself has said that he kind of wants to stay in Sweden, so that seems to be the plan here. It's not a bad thing, it's just a different thing. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Detroit Red Wings making this very great signing here. ASP is officially on the payroll. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.